Previously on Ballz.
I was busy just chatting there briefly to Stan Matthews, who joins us on the phone and on the radio and on Ballz for the first time. Stan, nice to chat to you again.
How are you doing, Darren?
Yeah, very, very good, thank you. And thanks for joining us this afternoon. Apparently Stan has made a special exception for Ballz Visual Radio. We really appreciate your efforts and for chatting to us this afternoon.
No, thanks, Darren. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and you've played such an important part, I think, in the history of sports media in this country that I never have a problem talking to you.
Thanks very much. Really appreciate those kind words. Of course, I was just telling the team how far back you go. Back to the, what is it, Boston campus, eh?
Yeah, I've still got a photo of you and me when we were a little bit maybe trimmer and younger. In the early 90s, back at Boston City campus, yeah.
That's the one. I remember, as I was saying to you, that's when you had hair in those days, but not a lot of it.
Not a lot,
but you had some on your head there. Now, geez, I mean, your life has progressed from, and I know, as I was saying to you, just completely passionate about sport and doing sports marketing and management. You eventually went to run that faculty there, didn't you?
Well, we started a sports program there, and we built it into something quite substantial, and over an 8-year period, and we eventually listed on the stock exchange, as part of the AdCorp group at that time. Yeah. So it was good to grow something in an industry that wasn't very mature. I wanted to study sports psychology when I finished my degrees, and it wasn't available in this country. So it was good to pioneer sports education, like tailored programs, and get assistance from guys like you at that time to raise awareness and bring some credibility to a growing industry, which is now obviously well established. Yeah,
and I think just from a media point of view, a lot of people have gone through that particular school and institution. I think Fresh has been through there, and just a whole lot of people as well. So well done to them.
There's dozens that certainly I've been dealing with in football, particularly, that have come through there. So it's always heartening to bump into old faces.
Okay, now you've gone through, obviously bumped you again at Supersport. You were managing some of their football. I know when Supersport United in the days of Russell Macmillan got them going as a second division side. They got them into their first division and Premier League. Have gone on to win the thing, and I know you've been very much involved with them. And then getting into the hot seat at the PSL.
Yeah.
And hot seat, I think, is the right term to use. Now, and suddenly another one that after a short tenure decided this is not it's not all it's cracked up to be, or were there just some disturbing signs for you, or what's the deal?
No, look, Darren, I'd served on the executive committee of the PSL since 2006. So, and in that time, obviously, I've been proud to have worked with a very strong team under the leadership of Dr. Khoza and senior states people like Kaiser in building the league and like revolutionizing, I think, professional football in South Africa. If you look at where it was 10, 12 years ago when I first joined, it was still very much amateurish, Yeah. I remember so well standing at Caledonian Stadium and watching all the journalists with their pencil and paper writing out the team sheets, one team sheet on a clipboard, in the tunnel. And today we've got like a fully integrated media system, computerized, online, and we've got one of the best systems and infrastructures in the world. So I've been very proud to have been part of that process. And when the chairman approached me after a little bit of instability in terms of CEO turnover to take over the operation, I saw it as a good opportunity, and I thought that I knew everything I needed to know about the league, having served on the board for those 5 years. But being in the position day in and day out and working on the operations was very different, and wasn't 100% what I expected. Certainly in terms of hands-on involvement in football issues. I wanted to be a football CEO and focus around football issues, but unfortunately you get to a situation where in that seat, which they call the hot seat, a lot of the issues are non-football issues and stuff that I'm not as passionate about and not as interested in as opposed to football. So it was different, but there's nothing untoward about that. It's more a case of just finding yourself in a position dealing with stuff day to day that you weren't expecting, or that isn't really where you feel is playing to your strengths, and my strengths are my passion and wanting to build and wanting to grow and develop. You've talked about education in Boston, and you've talked about building stuff at Supersport. So when MTS came along and said to me, listen, come and build some stuff in Africa, I just felt, you know what, it's just more in keeping with where I am and what I want and what I'm passionate about. So maybe it's better to make an early call than to carry on doing something that I wouldn't have renewed my contract anyway in 2.5 years' time. So I just felt rather just step up and let somebody else tackle it now. Change the direction, yeah.
So obviously, I mean, is you heading back there now? You're back in the Supersport fold, and obviously going to be dealing in Africa. Is that your new gig?
Yes, I'm going to be focusing around broadcast strategy and business development for Supersport in Africa. Basically, trying to build more PSL type products in the rest of Africa, and that's going to be my focus. But I'm still committed to local football, and I've indicated, or the chairman asked me yesterday if I'd be prepared to serve on a couple of subcommittees, and I said absolutely. I want to give to local football. I want to contribute to the development of the game in any way that I can, and I don't need to be paid for that, and I don't need a title for that. So I'm more than happy to still be involved. I'm a young guy, I'm 43 years of age, and I see that I've got a good 20-year stint ahead of me in football, and quite honestly, I would hope that I would be back at the PSL in someday in some shape or form, and maybe even when I'm a bit older as a future chairman. So, I certainly only leave football in a good way, as I left Supersport in a good way, because the ground, and you always want to keep your channels open if you want to make a return.
Yeah, understand what you're saying about there's just far too much admin work and nothing sort of directly related to soccer. It's obviously stuff that eventually gets there, but there's a lot of admin stuff that is involved. And I mean, in this business where we are, I've worked at a few stations where that has also been a case, where eventually your program manager isn't actually even got time to listen to programming, because he's got so many damn spreadsheets and reports and stuff to do. And you would think that at times, okay, well, if someone's job is to do that specific thing, and their passion is either the programming, or in your case the football, that there's enough resources around to bring somebody in and say, right, well, here we go, Stan, there's your assistant or whatever, there's the manager, they must focus on that stuff. So in fact, delegate something to somebody so you can get on with the important job of actually looking at football. Was that not an option for you?
It becomes difficult, Darren, because of the profile of the PSL and the profile of the personalities involved. As an example, I'm just giving you an example. So you're leading up to a cup final. So the CEO of the sponsor, the Minister of Sport, a range of dignitaries from SAFA to government and other people, they're not so happy just to deal with anybody in the organization or a delegated person. At the very least, they're expecting protocol-wise that I should be the one to meet and greet and do, all the types of formalities. And, it becomes a lot of political stuff and a lot of ambassadorial stuff. You're talking about safety issues and security issues. And at the end of the day, in terms of corporate governance, it's the CEO responsible for those things going through smoothly, which is great, and I didn't have a problem with that. The job itself, Darren, is not actually, they talk about it as a hot seat. It was a very straightforward job. It's just a question of saying, I could have sat out my 2.5 years and been pretty comfortable, for the next period of my life as the CEO, and not really had a concern, to be quite honest. But for me as an individual, I want to be more involved, be more hands-on, create something that's going to speak to a legacy and speak to my ambition and passion and drive. Not that the PSL couldn't do that, but it's a very mature league. There's not a lot of space for a person to bring their individuality or a greenfield type of concept to the fore. If we look at local football right now, let's call a spade a spade. There's only 3 things missing to keep us right where we want to be at the top of world football. And the one is the lack of crowd support that we're having. Okay,
but is that ever going to change? I mean, seriously, you look at Scotland, and I know it's a bad example, but I kind of see our league very much the same. You've got some very, maybe we're talking about more power, but really it's Chiefs and Pirates. Those are the games that are going to attract the crowds. You've got Sundowns that have got a support base. But I mean, I know, I've been there, and you guys have really, from a structure point of view, at Supersport, which is a team I follow. I mean, that's a side that I support. And I've had a look at the efforts that you guys have tried to put in to build a supporters club. I mean, how big is the Supersport supporters club at the moment? With all the success they've got, it surely should be a lot bigger than it is.
It should be, of course, and I'm saying I can't tell you the exact answers. If I had the answers, we would have had more bums on seats at Supersport, and we're not going to give up on that. But I'll tell you an interesting example, Darren. Just in the last week, I went to Richards Bay for the Thunder Chipper playoff match, and then over the weekend, the Chipper versus Santos at the Philippines Stadium. Now, those are very small stadiums that accommodate maybe 4,500, 5,000 people max. And they were full to the rafters, both of them, for those playoff matches. You don't need a lot of critical mass to have a good vibe, because the vibe in those stadiums was unbelievable and was really, really good. So, I think that if teams were more realistic and just like, we're at smaller stadiums, you take the same 4,500 people at that game and it was played at Athlone Stadium, you wouldn't have the same vibe, because we're playing in big stadiums and our teams just aren't capable and don't have the following to make those stadiums feel full and vibey. So that's one of the biggest problems, that we have in South African football at the moment. And it's going to take time. It's not going to open overnight. It's going to take time to address that issue. And that's the kind of issue that I think needs to be carried on a long-term basis. And which remember also that I wasn't a visionary by myself in the PSL. I act on the mandate of an executive committee. So a lot of the things that I was doing was a collective decision, and that collective vision of where the ExCo and the Board of Governors want the league to go is going to be carried forward, with or without me. And, so on a personal level, when I look at, for example, pioneering certain projects in Africa, that really is exciting, because it brings, some of my strength to the fore, and where I can really make a critical difference, and I think a bigger impact than I was having at the PSL.
All right, just finally, before we let you go, and we appreciate you chatting to us once again, the talk about personality clashes within the walls of the PSL and with hierarchy, can you clear that up for us? Is that all just speculation? And I think people are basing that on the fact of people that have bailed or left and identified one or two personalities as saying that they were a little bit too abrasive or whatever. Can you clear that up for us?
I don't think there's any organization anywhere in the world where there isn't conflict behind closed doors. I think it's healthy. For me, in the short time that I was at the PSL, at my management meetings and within the departmental meetings, I made it very clear to my guys that I wanted to have robust debates, and that I encouraged an exchange of views and different opinions, because if you're not going to test the status quo, and we're not going to play devil's advocate and push each other in areas, then you're not going to grow. So we encourage that, and of course there's always going to be differences between people and personalities. I had nothing formal that came across my desk that needed intervention, where I had to get involved and sit people down and get them to sort the issues out. I did that quickly and quietly, and people are professional and have to focus on their jobs. You don't have to always like the people that we work with. It's not possible, to like everybody, but we are professionals. And
see, Nicole.
And we
sorry, I'm just giving the heads up to some of my team here.
Yeah, no, I've got that. Exactly, Darren. You don't always have to like the person you work with, but you have to be professional and you have to do what's in the best interest of the sport and the organisation. So I don't think that there's anything that can't be resolved properly. And there was no issues for me. A lot of the speculation and the things that come out in the newspapers. People need to address those issues up front and be up front if they've got problems. Address them in the proper forums and deal with issues as they need to. But I think in a game like football, it's always going to be emotionally driven, and it's always going to have a certain degree of office politics. That's normal, that's natural, and it will always be that way.
Awesome stuff. Does it mean you're going to be traveling a lot now in your new gig with MultiChoice through Africa and being in different countries around Africa?
I'm on the planes. I'm hitting the planes on Sunday.
Wow.
to Kenya and Uganda and Nigeria. So I'm starting that whole travel routine immediately. And what can you do? That's part and parcel of it, and a bit of the dynamic and exciting realm as well.
Well, travel safely, and when you're in some of those countries and you've got some downtime or whatever, feel free to Skype us. We love catching up with our traveling South Africans. I've just got a tweet from Cheryl Calder here. In Japan, can't understand the language, so she's listening to Ballz right now.
Well, Darren, I just want to say to you, good luck with everything, and it's fantastic to have you driving, an exciting initiative and internet radio, and you've always been a pioneer in the areas that you've got involved with, and that's why it's always a pleasure to talk to you and to work with you, and you're a consummate professional, and it's fantastic to have a guy like you in the industry and in the country as a whole. So I'm always happy to chat with you, and I'll think about you when I'm in Lagos. Maybe you can cheer me up and.
Okay, watch his ego, Stan.
We're around anytime. If you need some cheering up, just give us a call, because we know how to talk crap here and just take your mind off things.
Show you our listener numbers. Thank you, thank you, Stan.
Awesome, Stan. Travel safe, bud. Thanks for chatting to us this afternoon. Good luck.
All right, all
cheers, man.
Okay,
bye bye. There we go. Stan Matthews, former CEO of the PSL, now going back to MultiChoice and going to be traveling through Africa.
We the best on 3. 1, 2, 3. We the best.
2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mondays to Fridays live on Ballz.co.za. Ballz.co.za.